common swim problem number 6. This is experiencing chafing or rubbing from your wetsuit. I personally, Joe, have only had this problem on salt water races, and I don't race in salt water often enough to remember that. And so I almost always end up getting chafed from saltwater events. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, this is salt water. I should have done more. But talk to us about, it's one thing I think to notice it after the swim, like the next day or something. But if we're out there and we can feel the rubbing begin to happen and it starts to become bothersome, what should we do?
Definitely. It's always that aha moment when you get in the shower after the race and you're like blood curdling because you're like, oh, I didn't know I had that. That's new.
Yeah.
Chafing in open water, it's definitely you tend to have that occur a lot more often in those saltwater swims. I mean, I feel like Kona was probably some of the worst chafing in a swim skin of all things, because I just don't think you're expecting that that's going to happen, just due to how different the water is than we're swimming lake or river. Most common areas you're going to see on people is the back of their neck. In salt water, you'll often see the side of the neck. And then for my athletes, often under the arm, as far as wearing a sleeveless wetsuit or a swim skin. So a couple of things. Any anti-chafe product, you can specific anti-chafe products or Aquifer, Vaseline, anything that's cheap. More is better. So make sure that you've applied it to all those areas that you've experienced it. The chafing in the back of the neck is often due to how much we're sighting, how much of how much tilt we have in our stroke. Now we're sitting up, our chest, upper torso is now rising, head is up. When we lift that neck, we're exposing the back of the neck to just that rough Velcro, that latch on the wetsuit. So most of the time, you'll realize that you sighted a whole bunch when you have chafing back there. So, ways to prevent that is getting better at sighting. And we talk about this. You just mentioned you could see wetsuits to your left and right. If you can see swimmers to their left and right, you're in the right spot. It becomes habit to pick our head up every 3 strokes because we have fear. We are blind and we can't see where we're going.
Am I going toward the buoy?
Yeah, of course. But getting to practicing where you are swimming with other swimmers around you, having a group and saying, we're going to swim from here to that point in the lake or that buoy. When you do that and you could see swimmers to your left and right, you don't need to pick your head up. Try counting to 50 before you pick your head up. So, kind of eliminating that unnecessary sighting will help prevent the chafing on the back of the neck. I had a couple more things. Let me think on this for a second. Specifically what I've used, and it's been very helpful, is sports tape, rock tape. When people just inevitably are going to chafe and it's going to derail the rest of their race. I had an athlete who had severe chafing, on the upper part of underneath the arm that, then running became very, very, very painful for the rest of the Ironman. So when that's going to happen, rock tape will not come off during an Ironman event. So, putting a small section on the back of your neck or on the side of your neck, if you're going to be in salt water, swim skin, or underneath those arms, it's going to save you tremendous amount of pain. And so if you always do, use the rock tape, and it will be very helpful in preventing that chafing.
Yeah, I know another thing to look out for, Joe, is when you are putting your swim skin on, you're putting your wetsuit on, make sure there's no Velcro exposed to your body. If you're putting it on properly, right, having somebody help you and make sure the leash is squared away properly and the Velcro isn't touching you, that I think the first time I ever had it's called a wetsuit hickey, right? When your wetsuit burns you somewhere on your neck, and they call it a wetsuit hickey. My very first open water event. And Lake Rockwall in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I had a wetsuit hickey rolling into work on Monday after that race, Olympic distance triathlon, and I just didn't secure the wetsuit properly. It was the exact spot where there's the Velcro attached, and I was just too novice at the time to know to look for that. And now I know, okay, make sure someone gets eyes on my wetsuit to make sure the leash and all that jazz isn't going to be rubbing my neck throughout that event. And two, I think the other time I've really had it happen is again in salt water, or if I'm wearing like a sleeveless tri suit or even a sleeve tri suit,
Yeah.
know where your
Yeah.
zippers are, know where the stitching is. Because if you've got your triathlon suit on under that wetsuit, and maybe you put your lubrication in the right spots where your wetsuit comes into contact, but you didn't lube where the edge of your tri suit is, that can also rub
Right.
during a swim event. And then all of a sudden you got all these marks where your tri kit comes into contact with your skin, but not
Right.
your wetsuit. So just be aware of all those contact points, right? And
Yes.
like Joe, like you said, lube them judiciously or
You're
generously.
exactly right. I will say the zipper, the belly button, and the heart rate monitor for women I mean, men
Yeah,
too, but for women, it can be excruciating. So more is better when it comes to anti-chafe
yeah.
products.
Don't be shy with those products.
Don't
Lather up